is BJ Aid. Welcome to this MYXclusive interview. I'm from the #1 music channel in the Philippines, Mix. And for today, we have a trio joining us all the way from Brooklyn, New York. They have 10 music videos out for their 10-track album. And we're going to be knowing more about that later on. And what could be better than to have them explain it to us right now in this MYXclusive interview. Please welcome Calvin, Ross, and Luke of the Happy Fits.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I know you're pretty busy with all the promotion and all, but I heard that one of you also has Filipino blood running through his veins. Calvin, hi. We're glad to have you here in the Philippines finally. Also, Ross and Luke.
They're allowed to come too? Is it just...
Only those with Filipino blood. No, just kidding.
Okay.
But yes, of course, we'd love to know more about like how you grew up. Did you grow up with Filipino food? Would you tell Ross and Luke about your heritage?
They've heard a bunch about it. My mom grew up in Manila.
Ooh.
Yeah, she has 2 brothers, and she grew up in a house with like 12 other people, all of her cousins. Her parents moved to America when she was just a baby, and they left her with her grandmother. And they just tried following the American dream. They started a laundromat in Edison, New Jersey. And then when my mother was 8, she was able to move over and with her 2 brothers. And then she didn't know any English at first. And, she just learned through the years. And she's very, very strong woman. I love her so much. And I know she's really excited for me to see the Philippines one day.
So
the house she grew up in is still owned by our family. So I'm excited to visit one day.
So you've never been to the Philippines?
I've never been to the Philippines. I've never left North America, honestly. My family never took vacations.
So I'm assuming, Ross and Luke, you've never been to the Philippines as well.
We have not. I am like Calvin, where I have not crossed any waters. But we're so excited the second we can. We are definitely coming over as soon as possible. We're super, super excited. So.
Well, even though you haven't been here, you already have loads of Filipino fans who are so excited to have you 3 perform live. Maybe, someday after all this is over. As you can see, we're still trapped at home. That's why I'm in my bedroom. But okay, now let's talk about your music. Thank you so much for releasing, such feel-good music during these times. It's very much needed. Let's talk about your 10 music videos. Like, whose idea was it to release a music video for each of your tracks?
It started as a joke, honestly. Yeah. We were like, what if we made a music video? And we were all like, that's way too much work.
That's crazy. Yeah. But what ended up happening is we were on tour when the pandemic hit, and we had only done like 3 shows, and we were supposed to be on tour for like 2 months, and they were like, you have to come home. It's really serious. We're like, okay. We came back, and after we made sure that we weren't sick, we kind of we're like, okay, we don't know how long this is really going to last, and we were supposed to play a bunch of shows. How do we still keep engaged with like our fans and everybody and new potential listeners? And so that's where the joke came along. Like, well, maybe we should just make 10 music videos, and that sounded far-fetched at the time, but we're here now, and we did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely. It ended up being like, okay, let's do these 4 music videos. And then we were like, how about another 2? And then we're like, well, I guess we're like over the like halfway mark. We might as well do another 4 more. Yeah. And that it gave us also a little, like, I guess, room to be like, what kind of music videos can we make? Like, are there different, we ended up doing like stop motion, animation, a cowboy themed one, 1-shot reversed take one.
That was the first one that we did, Go Dumb, and that was probably my favorite. It was the most stressful 2 weeks of my life, but I learned our song Go Dumb backwards, and then mapped out a story that would work front way and like backwards. So we were like filming it in reverse. I was saying it in reverse, and then we just took it, played it slow motion or fast forwarded it, and it looked great. So really happy with that one. And we just did that, the 3 of us and our old tour manager, Tyler, who's really great with a camera. He was running behind or running backwards the whole time while we're running at him. And he did that, like, I don't know, he did 20 takes or something, and it was freezing cold. And
it was also during.
And you guys were wet.
Yes.
And it was cold. Oh my gosh.
As hard as they could.
Calvin was definitely the one who was going through the most during that. Me and Ross got a little easy.
Yeah.
But it was during the height of the pandemic, so to have Tyler there with us, it was like we already were all kind of in isolation together. So it was like, how do we do this? And, you know, everyone kind of came together, and we are so happy that it worked out that way.
Our manager told us not to do it because he was like, "This is way too much work for just the three of you." And then I was like, "I'm gonna do this just to piss you off," and he ended up loving it. So
yeah, Calvin.
Well, it paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to everyone watching, there's actually a pretty good story behind Go Dumb, the music video of how Calvin almost died. Like the popper. So just do check it out on one of their videos, one of their live videos on their YouTube channel. The whole stories are there. But now I've got to ask, like, out of all the 10 tracks, why did you decide what could be better to be the title of your album?
Well, I think the funny thing, not funny, it's actually not funny at all necessarily. The interesting thing is we came up with the album idea before the pandemic happened. So when we were like, how do we go from making fruit puns to like making it a little more like serious? And so we were like, well, would it be interesting if the last track on the album was actually the title of the album? Because then it's like it encompasses it of like what could be better. And I was like, in our eyes, hopefully the next album might be better. Yeah. But then it ended up being, you know, a bit ironic of like it was the worst time like for a lot of people's, you know, lives. And
the song Get a Job definitely just had like a different feeling to it when we released it during the pandemic, even though we wrote it before.
It was very odd how a lot of these like no instructions and all these things and like Go Dumb were like, I just want to escape from this reality, or like, you know, we don't have any idea what we're doing in our lives, or we need to get jobs and all this stuff. All of these was done, like all of it was done before anyone had any idea what coronavirus even was. So it was kind of like a crazy thing of like weirdly was relatable in a way too, in some way or another. So yeah, it was kind of unintentional, but I guess gave it a greater meaning in a way. That we, you know,
the whole album is pretty much about how scary life is and how much self-doubt you have. So it was kind of an ironic title. Like, you know, what could be better than my life that is terrifying? So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we all dropped out of college, and I'm sure some Filipino fans listening, our parents will not like it when we tell them we're dropping out of college. I knew I was doing what I loved, which was just writing music, but it wasn't something that they were on board with. And I always felt like there's this like piece of me that was like, you know, that I was just filled with all this doubt and all this guilt. And it was weird doing what I love, writing music with these guys and recording and touring. And truly, what could have been better? But at the same time, like I still had that dark cloud over my shoulder.
Well, now that you mentioned it, what were your courses in college? I heard it was like accounting or something.
I did classical cello actually down in Georgia at the Robert McDuffie Center for Strings. Great program, super small, like 24 kids, and it was a great year of my life. I met my girlfriend, who I've been dating for 5 years, and you know, it was really fun. But I just love playing rock and roll more than classical.
But we went back to school. So I did. Dropped out twice.
So I could say I dropped out twice. I went back during the pandemic for accounting, doing online classes, because like numbers, I've always been able to use a calculator.
We were all so stressed about like being a band and like doing everything. And Calvin's doing everything. And he's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take 8 online classes. Like, and we're like, Calvin, you gotta sleep, dude. Like, you're talking backwards and you're learning accounting. All this stuff.
Yeah.
I went to school for music at William Patterson University for a year and a semester. I'm a year older than the guys. And so, I went for a thing called Popular Music Emphasis, which was kind of like a music business degree and also a performance degree. But I didn't have to do any juries, which was really nice, which is performance in front of everybody, which was super nerve-wracking. And I was like, thank goodness I don't have
Where they're all there to judge you. Yes.
Yes. But yeah, and then luckily I was very fortunate to meet these guys, and it was kind of like, well, I'm going to school for learning how to become a musician. Why don't I just become a musician and try it that way? And then it's like, of all times, if I was going to do it, I'll do it when I'm young and everything. And yeah, luckily these guys were like, hey, do you want to drum? And I was like, yes, please.
And Ross, how about you?
I went to University of Delaware for one whole semester, and I was studying politics, and it was horrible. but I just, not that it was horrible. I had no interest in my classes, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I was under this. It was called International Affairs. So it was like the study of international politics. And then, like a couple weeks into school, is when our first song off of our first EP started getting traction. And as soon as Calvin called me and he's like, check it out, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm leaving school. I was like, that's enough for me. So we all left and decided to pursue this full time and just give it everything we had. Because if we were still going to college, it's like we'd only be giving it, half the effort. So we figured young, we should do it now. College will always be there for us.
And now we're here kind of having an interview, and it's crazy.
The Philippines live.
And one of your songs on Spotify, Too Late, has 10 million streams already. I mean, you guys are really making waves. And you followed your heart with the way you're telling the story. I can sense that, this is where your happiness is. So congrats on finding that happiness. Now, let's talk about your future projects. What else can we expect from you guys for the rest of 2021 or maybe next year? What are you working on?
So we just released 2 new singles, Another Try and Cold Turkey. And that's, the beginning of our next project. We are currently actually in our studio in Brooklyn. We just moved here a few months ago, and luckily the studio is 4 blocks from our house. So we're able to come in here, and it's been the most time we've ever, got to. It's like the first time we're like, oh, we're like full-time musicians. I'm not like working on a food truck, and Ross isn't working on like an ice cream truck. It's like we are now like fully in it, and we are super excited because we finally had this time to really, take the time to write music that, we've always been super proud, but there's always been big time constraints. And given this time now has been a really amazing experience. And it's our 3rd album with our producer and manager, Ayad. And, having that, we are so excited for everyone to hear what we have in store. We actually just finished tracking drums. So now we're in guitar world. And then cellos will come, and then we'll start singing. But yeah, we're super excited. And I think the feeling of this, I feel like I'm talking forever. I'm sorry. I think a big feeling too, and I kind of mentioned before, was that the cello is such a special thing, and it's so unique. And I think a lot of it was like, how can we make, the cello have its like really prominent own voice, and how can we make the guitar have it like trade off, much like how Ross and Calvin trade off with their voices. It would be really cool to trade off with their instruments. So I think that's something that we really have in mind for this album, and going bigger than we ever have before, now that we have the opportunity and the tools to do so. So yeah, I guess expect louder music.
Looking forward to that. Now, what's your message to all of your Filipino fans who are waiting for you to perform here live someday?
We are incredibly grateful. 5 years ago, when we were in high school, we would never have pictured that we would even be having an interview, or let alone have one person in another country know our name. So we're very grateful, and we're very hopeful and excited to tour internationally eventually. Like, we don't know when it's going to happen or if we can do it, but we would absolutely love to.
As soon as we can, we will be there, and we will be super excited and can't wait to meet all of you. And yeah, we're just so grateful. This is literally a dream come true. So thank you for listening to us.
I can't wait to meet my real family.
But Calvin, you gotta say some Filipino words. Like, do you know some? Would you understand Filipino?
My mom speaks Tagaloglish, so they go back and forth when they communicate. So I only know like my favorite Filipino food is mamon. Like I got so chubby growing up because my aunt would bring that over whenever she came over. But I mean, they always say usige to each other. I don't know what that means.
Okay, let me teach you some words, and they actually rhyme with the name, the Happy Fits, because this phrase that I'm gonna teach you means see you. So just say kita kits.
Kita Kits.
Yes.
All right.
Nice.
Kita Kits, Philippines.
Yay! The Happy Fits
For
kita kits, guys.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope we get to see you perform live here someday. But for now, that's all the time that we have with the Happy Fits. Thank you all so much for joining us all the way from Brooklyn, New York. Calvin, Ross, and Luke of the Happy Fits. Yay!
Thank you